Daniel Carter sat in the doctor's office and listened to words that felt unreal. 6 months to live. Maybe less. His lungs were failing. The damage came from a poison gas used in the war 15 years ago. He had breathed it in during a battle at a place called Kepler Station. Now his body was finally paying the price. He was 54 years old. He had spent 32 years in the military. He had fought in 17 major battles. He had more medals than he could count. But none of that mattered now. His body was breaking down and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Daniel did not want to die in a hospital. He did not want nurses looking at him with sad eyes. He did not want the smell of medicine and the sound of machines beeping. He wanted to be alone. He wanted peace. He wanted to die on his own terms. That was when he found the listing online. The auction website sold old alien properties. These were buildings and bases left behind after the war between humans and the Krell Empire. Most of them were just ruins. People had already stolen anything valuable. But one listing caught his attention. It was a small base on a moon called Tycho 4. The description said it was in good shape but not working. The price was very low. It cost less than a used car. Daniel used all the money he had left from his military pension. He bought the base without even seeing it in person. 3 weeks later, he was on a transport shuttle heading to Tycho 4. The pilot was a young woman named Lisa Monroe. She looked worried as Daniel gathered his bags. She kept glancing at the gray, empty landscape outside the shuttle window. "Are you sure about this, sir?" she asked. "There is nothing out here for hundreds of miles. No other people, no stores. If something goes wrong, no one can help you." "That is exactly what I want," Daniel said. His breathing sounded rough and painful. He knew Lisa could hear it. She waited a moment, then handed him a small device. "This is an emergency beacon. If you need help, press the button. The battery lasts 5 years. Daniel took it and nodded. But he knew he would never use it. 5 years was much longer than he had left to live. The base was smaller than he expected. It was several dome-shaped buildings connected by tunnels. Most of it was buried in the rocky ground. The airlock door opened smoothly when he approached. Inside, he was surprised to find the air was still good to breathe. Emergency lights turned on automatically as he walked through the corridors. The Krell had left this place in a hurry. Personal items were scattered everywhere. There were tablets with dead screens, strange clothing that shimmered like oil, and furniture that seemed to grow out of the floor. Everything was covered in dust. No one had been here for many years. Daniel found the largest room. It must have been a command center once. He set up his sleeping bag on the floor. Above him, through the clear dome, he could see millions of stars. The view was beautiful in a cold, distant way. He had brought enough food and water for 6 months. He had medicine for the pain. He had a few books he had always wanted to read but never had time for. His plan was simple. He would live quietly for as long as he could. When the pain became too much, he would walk outside without a spacesuit. It would be quick. It would be clean. It would be on his terms. The first week went exactly as he planned. He read his books. He slept when he was tired. He ate small amounts of food. The pain in his chest got worse every day, but the medicine helped. He found comfort in the silence. The only sounds were the occasional creaks of metal expanding and contracting with temperature changes. On the 8th day, everything changed. Daniel woke up and noticed the lights were different. The dim emergency lights were gone. Now the walls gave off a soft blue-white glow. The temperature was more comfortable, and he could hear something. It was a low humming sound, like machines turning on deep inside the base. He got up slowly and followed the sound. It led him to a door he had thought was sealed shut. Now it stood open. Beyond it was a staircase going down. He had not known this staircase existed. The humming grew louder as he went down the stairs. His hand rested on the gun at his belt. It was an old habit from years of being a soldier. At the bottom, he found a room that made him stop and stare. The room was huge. It was filled with equipment that glowed with inner light. In the center stood a tall glass tank almost 10 feet high. It was filled with a clear gel. And floating in that gel was a Krell alien. The alien's eyes opened. They glowed with a soft amber light. The eyes looked directly at Daniel. "Human," it said. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, not from any speaker Daniel could see. "You trespass in my home." Daniel's hand moved toward his gun, but he did not draw it. Years of combat had taught him when he was in real danger. If this Krell wanted him dead, he would already be dead. Instead, Daniel studied the alien through the glass. He could see scars on its shell-like skin. One of its forearms hung at a strange angle. The glowing marks on its body were dim. This Krell was injured, maybe dying like he was. "I bought this place," Daniel said. He kept his voice steady even though each word hurt his damaged lungs. "It was a legal sale. I have the paperwork." The Krell's mouth parts clicked together. It might have been laughter. "Legal according to whose law?" "Your people's law? You won a war, human. That does not give you the right to take our property. Your empire left this base 15 years ago. You abandoned it." "I did not abandon it," the alien said. Its voice carried an emotion the translator struggled to convey. "I was dying. This tank is the only thing keeping me alive. My fleet was destroyed. My crew died. I barely made it here before my wounds killed me. I put the base on minimum power. I put myself in this sleep tank. I hoped my people would come back for me." Daniel understood that feeling better than the alien probably knew. "They did not come. No, they retreated. They surrendered. They left me here and forgot about me." The amber eyes dimmed slightly. "And now I wake up to find my last refuge has been bought by one of the soldiers who destroyed my world." "I was not at the Battle of Krell Prime," Daniel said quietly. "I was at Kepler Station. But I killed enough of your people that the difference probably does not matter to you." The Krell was silent for a long time, studying him. "Why are you here, human?" "This moon has nothing valuable. No resources. No strategic importance. Why spend your money on a dead base?" Daniel pulled out his medical reports and held them up, though he doubted the alien could read human writing from inside the tank. "I am dying. Something called pulmonary fibrosis. It was caused by chemical weapons your side used. I came here to die alone." The alien's glowing patterns flickered and changed color. The translator interpreted it as surprise, then something like dark humor. "So we are both refugees looking for a grave. Looks that way." Daniel put the reports away and gestured at the room. "This is your base. I did not know anyone was still here. I will leave if you want me to." "And go where? You said you bought this place. And from your breathing, I doubt you could survive the trip to another settlement." "I could walk outside without a spacesuit. It would be faster than waiting for my lungs to fail." The Krell's mouth parts clicked again, louder this time. "Your species is so dramatic about death. No, human. You will stay. This base is big enough for both of us to die in our own time." Daniel found himself almost smiling. "Do you have a name, or should I just keep calling you the Krell?" "I am Velkara, War Master of the 7th Fleet, Guardian of the Outer Colonies, bearer of—" The alien paused. "But those titles mean nothing now. Velkara will do." "Daniel Carter, former Major Earth Defense Forces. An officer. How fitting. We can die as warriors, at least." Daniel looked at the alien floating in its tank. He had come here to die alone. But now there was someone else here. Someone who understood war and loss and the weight of too many battles. Maybe dying alone was not the only option anymore. "I will leave you to rest," Daniel said. "The base will provide better life support now that I am awake," Velkara said. "You will find it easier to breathe." "It is the least I can do for my unexpected guest." Daniel climbed the stairs back to his room. His mind was full of questions, but he was too tired to think about them now. He lay down on his sleeping bag and stared up at the stars through the dome. Tomorrow would bring new complications. But for tonight he was still alive, and he was no longer completely alone. Over the next few days, Daniel found himself spending more time in the lower chamber with Velkara. At first it was just curiosity. He wanted to understand who this alien was and why it had stayed behind. But as they talked, something unexpected happened. They began to understand each other. Velkara remained in the tank most of the time. The alien explained that leaving the healing gel for more than a few minutes would make its injuries worse. The tank was old and the gel was breaking down slowly, but it was still the only thing keeping Velkara alive. "How long have you been down here?" Daniel asked one day. He sat on the floor with his back against the cool wall, breathing easier than he had in months. Whatever Velkara had done to the air was helping. 15 of your years, Velkara said. "In the tank, I am not fully awake. I drift between sleep and awareness. Time passes strangely. Sometimes it feels like days. Sometimes it feels like centuries. That sounds like torture. It is better than death, or so I told myself." The alien's glowing patterns shifted to a darker color. "Now I am not so certain. Perhaps dying in battle would have been more honorable than this slow decay." Daniel understood that feeling. "I thought the same thing. That is why I came here. I did not want to waste away in a hospital bed. Yet you are still fighting to breathe, still taking your medicine, still eating your food. Velkara's eyes focused on him. You say you came here to die, but your actions say otherwise. Old habits. The body wants to survive even when the mind has given up. Perhaps your mind has not given up as much as you believe. They fell into silence. Daniel found it was a comfortable silence, not awkward or tense. Two dying warriors had no need to fill every moment with words. The next day, Daniel asked about the war. He was not sure why. Maybe he needed to understand the person his enemy had been. Maybe he just wanted to hear another perspective on the violence that had defined so much of his life. Tell me about Kepler Station, Velkara said. That battle was a major defeat for my people. 3 cruisers destroyed, thousands dead. Daniel closed his eyes, remembering. The memories were still sharp after all these years. We were protecting a civilian evacuation. Your fleet attacked hard and fast. We held the line long enough for 30,000 colonists to escape, but we lost most of our defensive forces doing it. I knew the commander of that fleet. His name was Kelthor. He was aggressive, sometimes too aggressive. Velkara's patterns darkened. He died 3 months later at the Battle of Rigel. Your railgun platforms tore his ship apart. Good, Daniel said, then paused. Sorry, old instincts. Do not apologize. That is what soldiers do. We celebrate our victories and mourn our losses. The alien was quiet for a moment. The war was foolish. Our empire expanded too far, too fast. Our leaders believed conquest was the only path to survival. Many of us knew it would end badly, but we followed orders. That is what soldiers do. Did you ever think about refusing? Every day. But I had taken oaths. My crew depended on me. To refuse would have meant their deaths and my disgrace. Velkara's eyes brightened slightly. Tell me, human, if you had known you would spend the rest of your life dying from that battle, would you still have fought? Daniel did not hesitate. Yes, those colonists needed time to escape. We gave them that time. Even at the cost of your life? That is what we signed up for. Velkara made a sound that the translator could not interpret. Perhaps our species are not so different. We both value duty over survival. We both choose honor over comfort. Perhaps that is why we fought each other so well. As the days passed, Daniel noticed changes in himself. His breathing was getting easier. He needed less pain medicine. He could walk through the entire base without stopping to rest. At first he thought it was just a temporary improvement, the kind dying people sometimes experience before the end. But the improvement continued. He mentioned it to Velkara, who went very still in the tank. The base's life support system has been making changes, the Krell said slowly. I instructed it to optimize the air for both our biologies. Can you do that? I thought Krell breathed differently than humans. We need less oxygen and more nitrogen, but our needs overlap significantly. I have increased certain trace elements that have healing properties for both our species. Nothing that would change your mind or control you, Velkara added quickly. Only elements that support healing. Daniel sat down heavily. You are trying to keep me alive. I am trying to make your remaining time less painful. There is a difference. Why? The question hung in the air. Finally, Velkara's patterns shifted through several colors before settling on a warm amber. Because I am tired of being alone, the Krell said simply. For 15 years I have been trapped between life and death. I could not truly sleep. I could not truly wake. I had only my memories for company. Your presence here, human, has given me something I had forgotten existed. Companionship. Even if that companion was once my enemy. Daniel felt something shift in his chest, and for once it was not his failing lungs. I came here to die alone, I know, but perhaps we could die less alone together. That night Daniel did not return to his sleeping bag in the upper chambers. Instead, he brought it down to Velkara's chamber. The Krell dimmed the lights without being asked. For the first time in months, Daniel slept through the entire night without waking up in pain. The next morning, he found Velkara sitting on the floor outside the tank. The alien moved slowly and carefully. Up close, Daniel could see the full extent of the damage. One arm was clearly broken and had healed wrong. Several sections of the shell-like armor were cracked and scarred. The alien's breathing sounded as labored as his own. You should not be out of the tank, Daniel said, pushing himself up. Neither should you be dying at 54, yet here we both are, doing what we should not do. Velkara held out what looked like a medical scanner. May I examine you? Daniel hesitated, then nodded. The device passed over his body, making soft beeping sounds and showing information in alien writing he could not read. Velkara's pattern shifted through several colors as it studied the results. "Your condition is worse than I calculated," the Krell said finally. "The damage to your lungs is extensive. At this rate, you have perhaps 2 of your months remaining. I know. There is technology in this base. Medical equipment meant for Krell bodies, but some of it might be adapted for human use." Velkara paused. "I could try to modify it. I could create a treatment that might extend your life significantly." Daniel's first thought was to refuse. He had come here to die, not to cling to a few more months of pain and weakness. But looking at Velkara, seeing the hope in those amber eyes, he found himself reconsidering. "Why would you do that?" "Because you have given me something to live for, even if only for a little while longer. Let me return the favor." "It will not work. I am human. You are Krell. Our bodies are too different." Velkara's mouth parts clicked in what Daniel had learned meant determination. "Our bodies are more similar than you know. We both breathe oxygen. We both use similar processes to live. We both carry our genetic code in similar structures. The details are different, but the foundations are the same. That is part of why we could fight over the same worlds. Even if you could adapt the technology, you are dying too. You said the tank is the only thing keeping you alive." "True, which means I have little to lose by trying." The Krell moved back toward its tank, moving carefully and clearly in pain. "Think about it, Daniel Carter. I will not force treatment on you, but know that the option exists." As Velkara sank back into the healing gel, Daniel sat alone with his thoughts. He had come here ready to die. He had made peace with it, but now, faced with the possibility of more time, he found something stirring in him that he had not felt in years. Curiosity about what came next. He spent 3 days thinking about Velkara's offer. During that time, his condition got noticeably worse. The improved air helped, but it could not fix the basic damage to his lungs. He found himself needing the oxygen supplement all the time. Even simple tasks left him exhausted and gasping. On the 3rd night, he went down to Velkara's chamber and said simply, "Do it." The Krell emerged from the tank immediately, despite the obvious pain it caused. "You are certain?" "No, but I'm willing to try." Daniel managed a weak smile. "I figured something out these past few days. I came here to die because I could not face living in the world I left behind. But this is not that world. It is just you and me. 2 broken soldiers who understand each other. If there is a chance for more of that, I will take it." Velkara's patterns brightened to a brilliant gold. "Then we begin immediately. I must warn you, this will not be comfortable. Nothing about dying is comfortable. At least this way I am doing something." Daniel looked at the alien who had once been his enemy. Now they were something else. Not quite friends yet, but moving in that direction. 2 beings who had every reason to hate each other, choosing instead to help each other survive. "One question," Daniel said. "Why do you really want to save me?" Velkara was silent for a long moment. "Because you are the first person in 15 years to treat me like a living being instead of a monster from war stories. Because you listen when I speak. Because you make me remember what it was like to have purpose beyond mere survival. Is that reason enough?" Daniel nodded slowly. The nightmares came more often now. Daniel would wake up gasping, his damaged lungs fighting for air, his mind still trapped in memories of burning ships and dying friends. On the worst nights, when the pain medicine barely helped and sleep seemed impossible, he would make his way down to Velkara's chamber. The Krell never questioned why he came, never pointed out how much worse Daniel was getting. Instead, Velkara would dim the lights to a soft glow and talk about things far away from war. The alien spoke of the gardens on the Krell homeworld, where plants grew in spirals following ancient mathematical patterns. The singing crystals in Velkara's childhood home, the taste of rainwater collected during seasonal floods. In return, Daniel spoke of Earth's oceans, which Velkara found both fascinating and terrifying. He described snow falling on mountains, the smell of pine forests after rain, the simple pleasure of coffee on a cold morning. "Your world sounds chaotic," Velkara said during one of these conversations. "So much water everywhere. Such changing weather. How did your species build civilization in such unstable conditions?" "Maybe that is exactly why we did," Daniel replied, adjusting the oxygen device he now needed all the time. "We had to learn to adapt. Every place was different, so we learned to handle change. Krell Prime is stable. Our seasons change by only a few degrees. Perhaps that is why we were so rigid in our thinking, so unable to adapt when we met your kind. The alien's patterns shifted to a thoughtful purple. Do you know what our greatest failure was in the war? I am sure there were many. Indeed. But the greatest was this. We assumed you would behave rationally. According to our definition of rational, we calculated your acceptable losses, your breaking points, your willingness to sacrifice. Every calculation was wrong. You fought harder when pressed. You became more unpredictable when we expected retreat. You sacrificed more than any logical species should. Daniel laughed, which turned into a coughing fit. When he recovered, he said, "We are idiots." Is that what you are telling me? Brave idiots, perhaps. Or idiots whose bravery made them dangerous. Velkara paused. I lost many good soldiers learning that lesson. So did we. It was during the third week that Daniel noticed something strange. His breathing had improved slightly. Not a lot, but enough that he could walk the length of the base without stopping to rest. His pain levels had gone down too, even though he was taking less medicine, not more. He told Velkara about it. The Krell went very still in the tank. I have been making changes, Velkara admitted. Small changes to help your body heal. What kind of changes? The air composition. I have been gradually adjusting it. Adding compounds that promote healing. Nothing that would harm you or control your mind. Only supportive elements. Daniel sat down slowly on the floor. You have been treating me without asking. Would you have agreed if I asked? Probably not. That is why I did not ask. Velkara's patterns shifted through several colors. I apologize if I overstepped, but I could not simply watch you deteriorate when I had the means to help. Daniel thought about being angry. He had every right to be. But when he looked at Velkara, he saw only genuine concern in those amber eyes. The alien had been trying to help in the only way it knew how. No more secrets, Daniel said firmly. If you want to try something, you ask me first, agreed? Agreed. That night, Daniel brought his sleeping bag down to Velkara's chamber permanently. If they were going to do this, if they were going to try to keep each other alive, they needed to be honest with each other. And somehow, in the quiet of that underground room, honesty came easier than it ever had in Daniel's life. Tell me about your crew, Daniel said one evening. The ones who died with your fleet. Velkara was silent for a long time. Then the alien began to speak. Its patterns shifting through colors that conveyed grief the translator could not capture in words. There had been 83 members of Velkara's crew. The alien remembered every name, every face, every particular skill they had brought to the team. They trusted me to lead them, Velkara said quietly. They followed my orders even when those orders led them into battle against overwhelming odds. And I got them killed. You were following orders too. That does not absolve me of responsibility. I commanded them. Their deaths are mine to carry. Daniel understood that burden. He had commanded troops too. He had sent people into situations where some of them did not come back. How do you live with it? Poorly, Velkara admitted. For 15 years in this tank, I have had nothing but time to replay every decision, every order I gave. I have found 1,000 ways I could have done things differently. 1,000 ways some of them might have survived. And would any of those different choices have actually worked, or are they just fantasies? The question seemed to surprise Velkara. I do not know. The calculations are impossible to verify now. Perhaps they would have made things worse. That is the trap, Daniel said. We replay the past, looking for the perfect choice that would have saved everyone. But that choice never existed. We did the best we could with what we knew at the time. Does that make you feel better about your own losses? No, but it helps me understand that guilt is not the same as responsibility. I was responsible for my troops, but their deaths are not my guilt to carry forever. Velkara's patterns shifted to a softer amber. How did you become so wise about such things? I am not wise. I am just tired of carrying weights I was never meant to bear alone. Over the following days, Velkara began preparing to treat Daniel more seriously. The alien worked constantly, even pushing itself to stay out of the tank longer than was safe. Daniel watched as Velkara modified equipment, ran simulations, and tested compounds on tissue samples Daniel had provided. You are making yourself worse, Daniel said one day. Seeing how dim Velkara's patterns had become, you need to stay in the tank more. Your condition is deteriorating faster than expected. If I do not complete the treatment preparation soon, it will be too late. Then it will be too late. I do not want you killing yourself to save me. Velkara turned to face him, all four arms gesturing in what might have been frustration. Do you not understand? Saving you gives me purpose. For 15 years, I have had no reason to exist except to avoid death. Now I have a reason. I have a goal. I have someone who needs my help. Do not take that away from me. The words hit Daniel hard. He had been so focused on his own situation that he had not fully understood what this meant to Velkara. The alien was not just trying to save his life. It was trying to save its own sense of purpose. All right, Daniel said quietly, but we do this together. You teach me how to help. You show me what to do. That way, if you need to rest, I can continue the work. Velkara's patterns brightened slightly. You would do that? You are trying to save my life. The least I can do is learn enough to help you do it properly. So Daniel became Velkara's student. He learned about Krell biology and how it compared to human biology. He learned about the healing compounds the base could synthesize. He learned how to read the medical scans and what the different measurements meant. It was complex and difficult, and his damaged lungs made concentration hard, but he pushed through. Velkara proved to be a patient teacher, explaining concepts multiple times when Daniel did not understand, breaking down complex ideas into simpler parts. And slowly, Daniel began to grasp the basics of what they were trying to do. The key is cellular regeneration, Velkara explained, showing him a holographic display of human lung tissue. Your cells are damaged beyond their natural ability to repair. We need to stimulate them, give them the resources they need to rebuild healthy tissue. But my body has been trying to do that for months. It is not working, because your body lacks certain compounds that could help. Compounds that exist in Krell biology but not in human biology. If we can introduce these compounds safely, your body might be able to heal itself. Daniel studied the display, trying to understand the complexity of what they were attempting. How do you know this will work? I do not know. This has never been tried before. You would be the first human to receive this treatment, but the theory is sound and the simulations are promising. And if it does not work? Velkara's patterns shifted to a somber blue. Then you will die as you were going to die anyway. But at least we will have tried. Daniel thought about that. He had come to this moon expecting death. He had accepted it. But now, with the possibility of life extended before him, he found he wanted that chance. Not because he feared death, but because he had found something worth living for. Companionship with someone who understood him. Purpose in helping another being. A reason to face each new day. When do we start? He asked. Tomorrow, Velkara said. I have prepared everything. The treatment will take several hours. It will be uncomfortable, perhaps painful, but if it works, it could give you years instead of months. That night, Daniel lay awake in his sleeping bag, staring up at the equipment that surrounded Velkara's tank. He thought about the strange path his life had taken. He had been a soldier for so long that he had forgotten how to be anything else. But here with Velkara, he was learning. He was becoming something new. Not a soldier, not a dying man, but simply Daniel. A person trying to survive, to connect, to matter. Velkara, he said into the darkness. The treatment tank stood ready, filled with a cloudy fluid that seemed to pulse with its own light. Daniel looked at it and felt fear grip his chest. Not fear of death. He had made peace with death long ago. But fear of hope. Fear that this might work and give him something to lose again. You do not have to do this, Velkara said, emerging from its own tank with obvious effort. You can still choose the path you came here for. Daniel shook his head. No, I have already chosen. I just needed a moment to accept what that choice means. What does it mean? It means I want to live. Not just exist, but really live. And that is terrifying after spending so long preparing to die. Velkara's patterns shifted to a warm gold. Fear is not weakness. It is proof that what we attempt matters. Daniel stripped down to his underwear and approached the tank. The fluid inside was warm to the touch. Velkara helped him climb in, attaching a breathing mask that would supply oxygen directly to his lungs. The sensation of the gel surrounding his body was deeply strange. It felt alive somehow, aware of his presence. The treatment will last 6 hours, Velkara explained. The gel contains compounds that will be absorbed through your skin and lungs. They will seek out damaged tissue and begin stimulating cellular repair. You will feel tingling, perhaps burning. That is normal. If the pain becomes too severe, signal me and I will end the session. I have handled pain before. Not like this. This is your body attempting rapid healing. It will exhaust you. Daniel settled into the gel, letting it support his weight. I am ready. Velkara activated the system. Immediately, Daniel felt the tingling Velkara had mentioned. It started in his chest, where his lungs were most damaged, and spread outward through his entire body. The sensation grew stronger, becoming uncomfortable, then actively painful. His damaged lungs felt like they were on fire. He wanted to signal Velkara to stop, but he gritted his teeth and endured. 6 hours. He could survive 6 hours. Time became strange in the tank. Sometimes it seemed to crawl, each second an eternity of discomfort. Other times it seemed to jump forward, minutes disappearing into gaps in his awareness. He focused on breathing, on the steady rhythm of air flowing through the mask. In and out, in and out. Stay alive. Keep fighting. When Velkara finally drained the tank, Daniel could barely move. The Krell helped him out and wrapped him in warming blankets. Every muscle in his body ached. His chest felt like he had been beaten, but underneath the pain, something felt different. His lungs, which had been struggling for months, felt like they were working harder. Not better yet, but actively trying to heal. How do you feel? Velkara asked, monitoring his vital signs with a scanner. Like I was hit by a transport shuttle, Daniel said, his voice rough, but alive. The treatment has initiated a healing response. Your body is already beginning to repair damaged tissue, but this is only the first session. You will need many more. How many? Unknown. We will monitor your progress and adjust as needed. Perhaps 20 sessions over several months. Daniel closed his eyes. Months. He had come here expecting to have only weeks left. Now he was planning for months. It felt like winning a lottery he had not known he had entered. He slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke, he felt different. Not better exactly, but as if his body was engaged in some massive internal project. Velkara confirmed this with scans that showed increased activity throughout his damaged lung tissue. It is working, the Krell said, its patterns bright with something that might have been joy. Slowly but working, they established a new routine. Every 3 days, Daniel underwent a treatment session. Between sessions, he rested, ate the food Velkara synthesized, and slowly regained strength. The improvements were small at first. He could breathe a little easier. He could walk a little farther. But as the weeks passed, the changes became more obvious. One morning, nearly 2 months after the treatments began, Daniel woke to realize he had slept without the oxygen supplement. He took an experimental breath, then another, deeper this time. His lungs protested but did not fail. He stood up and walked through the base, testing his limits. He made it all the way through both levels without needing to stop and rest. He found Velkara in the medical bay, working on adjustments to the treatment protocol. The Krell moved slowly with obvious difficulty. Daniel realized with a shock that Velkara had gotten worse. Much worse. While the treatments were helping him, they were draining Velkara's limited resources. You are killing yourself to save me, Daniel said flatly. Velkara did not deny it. A temporary setback. Once your treatments are complete, I can focus on my own recovery. That is a lie, and we both know it. You are spending more time out of your tank than is safe. You are using resources you need for your own healing. You have to stop. I cannot stop. You are not fully healed yet. If we end the treatments now, the progress could reverse. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, hot and fierce. I did not agree to this so you could die in my place. That is not acceptable. Then what do you suggest? Velkara's patterns flashed with frustration. We have limited resources. Limited time. I am trying to save you while I still can. We save each other or we save no one. That is the deal. There may not be enough resources for both of us. Then we share what there is and both live a little longer. But I will not let you sacrifice yourself for me. They stared at each other, two stubborn beings refusing to back down. Finally, Velkara's patterns shifted to a resigned blue. You are as difficult as any human I have ever met. You are welcome. That evening, Daniel made a decision. If Velkara could learn human medicine to save him, then he could learn Krell medicine to save Velkara. He spent hours studying the medical systems, trying to understand how they worked and what they could do. It was complex and difficult, made worse by the fact that much of the documentation was in Krell script he could barely read. But Daniel had been a soldier for 32 years. He knew how to learn under pressure. He knew how to push through exhaustion and confusion to grasp essential concepts, and slowly, painfully slowly, he began to understand. The base had fabrication systems that could produce specialized medications. Some of those medications might help with Velkara's damaged organs. The challenge was figuring out which ones and in what combinations. Daniel started running simulations, testing different compounds on tissue samples. Most failed. Some made things worse, but a few showed promise. He worked in secret at first, not wanting to raise Velkara's hopes if nothing came of his efforts. But after a week of trial and error, he found a compound mixture that the simulation said should help repair damaged Krell tissue. "I need you to run some scans," Daniel said to Velkara one day. "On you? But your next treatment is not for 2 days, not on me. On yourself." Velkara's eyes brightened with surprise. "Why?" "Because I have been working on something, and I need baseline measurements to test if it works." The alien studied him for a long moment, then performed a detailed scan of its own body. Daniel compared the results to earlier scans he had accessed from the base's medical records. Velkara's condition had deteriorated significantly over the past 2 months. "Now take this," Daniel said, handing over an injector filled with the compound he had created. "What is it?" "A medication I synthesized, based on Krell biology and your specific injuries. It should help with tissue regeneration in your damaged organs." Velkara stared at the injector. "You have been studying Krell medicine. You studied human medicine to save me. Seemed only fair I return the favor. This is dangerous. If you made an error in the formulation, this could kill me. I know. But doing nothing will also kill you, just more slowly." Daniel met Velkara's eyes. "You told me once that fear is proof that what we attempt matters. I am afraid this will not work, but I am more afraid of not trying." Velkara's pattern shifted through several colors before settling on warm amber. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Probably both." The Krell took the injector and administered the medication. They both waited, tense and watchful. For the first few minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then Velkara's patterns began to brighten just slightly. The alien took a deeper breath. "I feel different," Velkara said slowly. "Less pain in my damaged arm. Easier breathing." "It is working," Daniel said, relief flooding through him. "It is actually working." They ran another scan. The results showed increased cellular activity in Velkara's damaged tissues, similar to what Daniel's treatments had produced in his lungs. It was not a cure, not yet, but it was hope. "We are even now," Velkara said quietly. "You saved me as I saved you. We are not even. We are partners, and partners take care of each other." Over the following weeks, they adjusted both treatment protocols. Daniel continued his sessions in the healing tank, but less frequently. Velkara continued taking the medication Daniel had created, with regular adjustments based on scan results. Both of them improved. Slowly, painfully slowly, but steadily. One evening, 3 months after Daniel had first arrived at the base, they sat together in the command center. Daniel was breathing easily without any supplemental oxygen. Velkara sat outside its tank, moving without obvious pain for the first time since Daniel had met it. "We are going to survive this," Daniel said, surprised by how much he wanted that to be true. "Yes," Velkara agreed. 6 months after Daniel had first arrived on Tycho 4 to die, he stood on the surface without any breathing assistance. His lungs were not perfect. They would never be perfect. But they worked well enough for him to live, to move, to build something new. Inside the base, Velkara was teaching a small class on biology. The Krell could now spend entire days outside the healing tank, though it still needed regular sessions to maintain health. The damaged arm had healed enough to be functional again. Both of them had come back from the edge of death, but bringing others to join them had proven more difficult than either had expected. Daniel had used the emergency beacon Lisa Monroe had given him months ago. When the pilot arrived, expecting to find a corpse, she instead found Daniel healthy and working alongside a Krell alien. Her shock had been considerable. "You are alive," she had said, staring at him. "You are actually alive, and you are working with a Krell." "This is Velkara," Daniel had replied calmly. "It saved my life. We want to create a sanctuary here for war veterans who need healing and purpose." Lisa had taken a long time to process this information, but eventually she had agreed to help. She carried messages back to Earth, to the right people who might understand what they were trying to create. The response had been mixed. Some people saw the value immediately. Others were hostile, insisting that humans and Krell could never work together peacefully. A few accused Daniel of being a traitor, but slowly, carefully, they began to build support. The first new arrival was a human engineer named Chris Palmer. He had lost both legs in the war and struggled to find meaning afterward. He came to Tycho 4 skeptical and angry, but when he saw the base's systems, his eyes lit up with interest. "These systems are incredible," Chris said, examining the power generation equipment. "Old, yes, but the design is brilliant. With some modifications, we could triple the efficiency." "Can you do it?" Daniel asked. "Can I do it?" "Just watch me." Chris threw himself into the work with an intensity that reminded Daniel of himself. Within 2 weeks, he had improved multiple systems throughout the base, and working alongside Velkara, learning Krell engineering principles seemed to give him the purpose he had been missing. The second arrival was a young Krell scientist named Tirsha. She had been studying medicine that could work across species when the war ended. Her own government had blacklisted her for refusing to turn her research into weapons. She came to Tycho 4 cautious and uncertain. "I was told humans could not be trusted," she said to Daniel when they first met. "But Velkara vouches for you, and I trust Velkara's judgment." "We are trying to build something new here," Daniel said. "Something that crosses old boundaries." Tirsha and Velkara spent hours discussing medical theory. Daniel listened, fascinated by concepts he only partially understood. Together, the two Krell developed improvements to the treatments that had saved both Daniel and Velkara. They created protocols that could be adapted for different species, different injuries. More people came. Some stayed, some left, but slowly a community began to form. The small base on Tycho 4 expanded, growing new structures into the rocky terrain. Humans and Krell worked side by side, building something that had not existed before. Not quite human, not quite Krell, but something shared. Daniel found himself in a leadership role he had never expected. He was not commanding troops anymore, but he was coordinating efforts, resolving conflicts, helping people find their place in this new community. It was challenging in ways combat never had been. It required patience and understanding, not quick decisions and decisive action. But it was also deeply fulfilling. One day, Lisa Monroe brought news from Earth. "There is interest in what you are doing here." "Real interest. Some officials want to visit, see the operation for themselves." "Are they hostile?" Velkara asked. "Some are, but others see potential. The war damaged millions of people on both sides. If you can prove that joint healing programs work, it could change how both species approach post-war recovery." "No pressure then," Daniel said with a slight smile. The officials came. They toured the facility. They interviewed residents. They examined the medical protocols. Some remained skeptical, but others were impressed. One human official, a woman named Karen Hayes, spent a long time talking with Daniel. "What you have built here is remarkable," she said, "but it is also small. To make a real difference, you would need resources, funding, political support. Are you offering those things?" "I am saying they might be available if you can prove this model works on a larger scale. More residents, more treatments, more success stories. How many more? Double your current numbers within 6 months. Show sustained success rates. Then we can talk about official support." It was a challenge, but Daniel and Velkara accepted it. They reached out to more veterans, both human and Krell. They improved their facilities. They trained more people in the medical protocols. The base grew from a handful of residents to dozens. Not everything went smoothly. There were conflicts between species, arguments over resources, moments when it seemed like the whole project might collapse. But Daniel and Velkara held it together, serving as bridges between the two communities. Their friendship, their partnership, proved that cooperation was possible. And slowly, others began to believe it too. 8 months after his arrival, Daniel stood in the expanded command center, now busy with activity. Through the dome, he could see construction crews adding another new facility. Humans and Krell worked together, their movements coordinated from weeks of practice. Chris Palmer rolled up in his wheelchair, now modified with Krell technology to handle the rough terrain. "The new medical wing is almost complete. Tirsha says we will be able to treat twice as many patients once it is operational." "Good. We have a waiting list of 40 people who want to come here." "We are making a difference," Chris said. "Real difference. Who would have thought?" Who indeed? Daniel had come here expecting death. Instead, he had found life, purpose, and something like family. He glanced over at Velkara, who was reviewing medical reports with Tirsha. The two Krell were gesturing animatedly, their patterns bright with engagement. Lisa Monroe found Daniel later that evening. "I have news. The officials want to offer you a contract. Full funding for expansion. Official recognition as a joint human-Krell recovery facility. There are conditions, of course, but it is basically what you wanted." Daniel felt a surge of emotion he could not quite name. Pride, maybe, or hope, or simple satisfaction that they had proven this could work. "We will review the contract," he said. "But yes, tell them we are interested." That night, Daniel and Velkara sat together in their usual spot, watching the stars through the dome. They did this most evenings now, a quiet ritual that had become important to both of them. "We have come far," Velkara said. "From two dying beings to this. It hardly seems real." "It is real. We made it real. Do you ever regret it? Coming here?" Daniel considered the question. He thought about the person he had been when he arrived, broken, defeated, ready to give up. And he thought about who he had become, stronger, connected, purposeful. "No," he said finally. "I came here looking for an ending. I found a beginning instead, as did I." Velkara's patterns shifted to warm gold. "You know, in my language there is a word. It translates roughly to chosen family. Not blood relations, but people who choose to stand together. That is what we have become. Chosen family. I like that." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Around them, the base hummed with life. People laughed. Conversations echoed through corridors. Equipment beeped and whirred. All the sounds of a community that was alive, growing, thriving. In the medical wing, a new patient was undergoing her first treatment. She was human, a former soldier who had given up hope. But here, surrounded by others who understood her pain, she was beginning to believe that healing was possible. In the engineering section, Chris was showing a young Krell how to modify power systems. The two of them argued good-naturedly over the best approach, their conflict purely technical, free of the hatred that had defined the war. In the living quarters, humans and Krell shared meals, told stories, and slowly learned to see past the divisions that had once made them enemies. This was what Daniel and Velkara had built. Not a sanctuary for death, but a community for life. Not a place to hide from the world, but a place to prepare to rejoin it. Not an ending, but a continuation. "What comes next?" Daniel asked. "Whatever we choose," Velkara replied. "That is the gift of survival. We get to choose what comes next." Daniel smiled. He had spent so long being told what to do, where to go, who to fight. But here, in this unexpected place with this unlikely companion, he had found freedom. The freedom to choose. The freedom to build. The freedom to hope. "Then I choose this," he said. "I choose to keep building. Keep helping. Keep proving that former enemies can become family. As do I." They clasped hands, human and Krell, two beings who should have died alone but chose instead to live together. The abandoned base that had been meant as a tomb had become a home. The ending Daniel had sought had transformed into a beginning he had never imagined. In the vastness of space, on a small moon that no one had cared about, two souls had chosen to live again. And in choosing life, they had created something beautiful, something lasting.